This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swantowski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. So we have something a little different for you with this episode. We've said that we wanted to start adding in some new voices to these discussions. Earlier this season, we did that by bringing in our friend Steve Sawyer, Gearman Steve, for our Gear Fixes podcast. And this week, we have a good friend of Troutbitten, Matt Mickey. So I have emails and messages coming in all the time with ideas for the podcast, questions about things people see in the videos or that maybe they read on the website. And that's great, by the way. Keep all of that stuff coming. But every so often, someone writes in with an idea that really gets my attention. Such was the case when Matt emailed me his thoughts just a few months ago. So let me read some of this and just kind of set the whole thing up for tonight. Matt's idea, his thesis, is that Gen X is the greatest fly fishing generation. That's what he said. Gen Xers, by the way, were born from the mid-'60s to the early '80s. So Matt has a great point here, that the experiences of anglers of this age span multiple eras of fly fishing that will, quite honestly, probably never be duplicated. We talk a lot about our frame of reference in fly fishing. Wherever you get into the game, a lot of your baseline is set by whatever is popular or widely accepted at that moment in time. So here's more from Matt. This is what he wrote me. He said, it's the generation that is just old enough to know Humphreys, Harvey, and Ed Koch, Charlie Fox, and Vince Marinero, maybe even some of them firsthand. We cut our teeth on hardbound books with black and white pictures of hand-drawn illustrations. We had print magazine subscriptions and were the first to grace the pages of the internet fly fishing forums, complete with colorful screen names, some of those turning into real-life, in-person friendships. We are the generation that learned to fish unsupervised with worms and minnows, salmon eggs and power bait, walking around with a stringer full of 7 trout, catching and releasing until it was time to go home, and we hung the 8th one. We were just feral enough to know not how to get stuck in the hand by a bluegill's spines and how to pull a snelled bait holder hook out of our thumb by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've done that.
Yep.
It didn't hurt too bad. They're small hooks, like a size 10.
Yeah, good size 10.
We weren't fed information. We learned through trial and error, with our feet on dirt and bike pedals. And we didn't worry about being abducted either.
That's fair.
We were old enough to have started on a $25 Martin fiberglass combo that we got for Christmas. And now we have a corner of the den with a couple Sage SP, LL, or RPL rod tubes still leaning there. We sweated it out in neoprene waders in June and couldn't get them on in December. We are just young enough, but not crotchety enough to listen to new ideas and try new technology, while still incorporating the tried and true ideas we honed along the way. I think that's the key to Matt's thesis here, or at least it's my favorite part anyway, right? We're old enough, but young enough too. And then Matt continues, we have a bookcase full of Gierok and Lions, and every one of us has a copy of Hatches by Cauchy and Nastasi on our tying desk. And yet, we also embrace YouTube and Instagram, Euronymphing, sort of, and junk flies. Had to get that sort of in there. And then Matt continues. He said, I can't picture a 20-something caring about, or maybe even really knowing about who George Harvey was, or having that big hardcover copy of Hatches. And conversely, I can't picture a 75-year-old giving a hoot about 4mm orange tungsten beads and squirmy wormies. We as Gen X do it all. We have the most bullets in the gun, and we aren't afraid or ashamed to use any of them. I say we are the most versatile, capable, and open generation to ever wield a fly rod. Matt finishes with, there, I said what I said! Exclamation point. That's our topic this evening. I picked my favorite part of Matt's excellent long email that he sent me. Like I said, it really caught my attention, and it got me thinking. For a couple of days, I was thinking about this. I was like, there's a lot there. I brought it up with the guys, and we decided we wanted to have Matt on and talk about it. So that's our topic for this evening. I think it's important to understand, though, the point here is not that Gen X is the best generation, because only so many of us are fortunate enough, right, to be born. You can't help where you're born. So we're not the best, even though we might be. I'm not saying we're the best, but rather say, again, let's say we're the most fortunate, because we've gotten to live through all of this stuff. And it makes me wonder, too, will that kind of experience ever happen again? We're going to talk about that. Meaning 50 years from now, when the 20-somethings are 70-something, will they have that depth of experience? Mm-hmm. Sure, they'll have time on the water, but will they be missing some important things? And if, let's say, modern anglers new to the game are missing some things now and in the future, is it possible to go back and get them? These are kind of the things we'd like to talk about tonight. So we've brought Matt Mickey in to join our discussion about his idea. Let me first introduce Dr. Trevor Smith joining us tonight as well. Dr. Trevor, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing fantastic.
How old a man are you?
I'm 40, so 85. So
what's your generation? What's the title for your generation? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Did you say you were, Trevor? 45?
Yeah.
Matt knows, I bet.
You just caught the tail end of a millennial.
Of the millennial. Yeah. So I think
you just missed Gen X.
Not as good as us, Matt.
Yeah.
Nope.
I was going to bring up this point sort of to begin with, but I think a definition of the, as the generations blend together, obviously, like the dates kind of are trying to explain the formation that people went through in those phases of life, right?
Sure.
And I think that urban versus rural upbringing can make a pretty big difference in terms of where those began and ended. And so I just think, I do think my rural upbringing certainly kept me with the exposures that a Gen Xer might have had versus a millennial.
Let's talk about that. That's a great point. Let's talk about that in a second. Let me introduce Matt Mickey. I don't want to go on too long without introducing our feature here.
That's right.
Matt.
I appreciate it.
Matt, thanks for joining us. And
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good to have you here.
I was telling my wife, you guys are sports guys, so you might get the reference, but I said I don't know if I feel more like that 12-year minor league rookie in baseball that got the call up here to the major leagues, or if I feel more like the guy in the audience that got called down at The Price is Right.
That's good.
I'm not quite sure.
You thought about that beforehand, didn't you?
Either way, it's
either way. It's
I was
great to have
just kind of minding my own business, enjoying the Troutbitten content and putting some of the things I've been reading and learning into practice. And like I said, minding my own business, and I go and open my mouth, my big mouth one time, and here I am.
That is true. That was our first correspondence.
Yeah.
It was well written, Matt. Yeah, I got to say.
Oh, yeah.
You got a talent for writing. Yeah.
Didn't I send the whole thing to you guys, Trevor? Maybe the whole thing?
Yeah.
Months back, yeah. So Trevor has read the whole thing. Of course, I just selected, kind of my favorite parts there, what you wrote. It's a great thesis.
It's kind of funny because I have a health science pre-med degree from Lockhaven.
Okay,
and
nice.
My freshman year, I had my freshman composition professor told me, "You're in the wrong major. You should try to encourage me to switch over to an English major." And
no kidding. There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
you got that in you.
As an English major, what they were trying to teach us anyway was how to communicate, really, especially how to see ahead to what's going to confuse people, or how you can make the biggest impact on people's brains, I suppose, on their thoughts, by thinking how they're going to think and what's going to confuse them. What am I saying that is not going to connect? Or there's going to be objections. What are those objections? How can I kind of head those off? Build those into my thesis by saying, hold on, I know you're probably thinking this, but let me say that. Anyway, anybody who's at a composition class kind of knows what I'm talking about. What you were saying there, Trevor, a moment ago, about how you're rural versus, what was the opposite of rural?
Urban, right? Rural versus urban. I was thinking about this because I was already preparing to try to argue myself into Gen X, because I think
you want to be Gen X.
I want to be Gen X.
He wants to be part of the greatest generation.
Right.
Of fly fishers, man.
I've spent a lot of my life complaining about Gen Y, and the millennials, because of because of some of what I perceive as some of the weaknesses of Generation Y in my own line of work are just the lack of work ethic, potentially.
And they're younger than Generation X, just to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They start, start 81, 82, my birth date in 85 falls into the millennial category. But I really do think a lot of it has to do with just who you were brought up by, right? And what exposures you had as a kid that kind of formed you. And that's why we even put years around and bracket these generations, right? Because you can sort of identify common exposures that led to some developmental traits that were the same across an entire generation. So I think, being rural, I didn't have technology, internet, TV, like probably people in more urban settings had a little bit earlier. Exposure to that stuff happened later, grew up fairly, not well off, and so had to work hard for what I had, and learned from a pretty early age that work was really valuable and important and not an option. So I think a lot of those things, when I look at what embodies the characteristics of Generation X, I think I just find myself fitting into that category a little better. But
I think our whole crew kind of is very much like that. And you're talking about your exposure growing up in rural versus urban, sure. But even just the things that you were into, even besides fishing, and that work ethic and things like that. Like, you got to work for it. You're not going to quit. I remember you told me you weren't going to quit a athletic team. Was it football? Right?
Yeah.
All the guys aren't here. We're recording in the middle of the week because I lost my internet connection. We usually record on Mondays. So, but I just want to bring up, like, Austin, for example, is 30, just turned 30. And I'm about to turn 50. So I'm solidly in that Gen X zone. But Austin, I don't know his generation. What is it? Anybody? Matt, what are
old's Austin?
He's 30, just turned 30.
So he's the very bottom end of a millennial. He's Gen Y.
Okay. But I've said about Austin from the time that I met him, when he was in college, just at Penn State as a student, I said, this is the most well put together student I've ever met. And I was playing bars and restaurants out in, I was playing music at the time. And Austin, I would give Austin a ride home because he would help me load out. I'd have guitars and saxophones and pedal boards and half a PA system and stuff. And I got to know Austin because he was just a good friend. He became a real good friend right away. He knew Troutbitten stuff, and he started talking to me. And right away, I said, man, this kid is like older than his generation, so to speak. Older than, soul. Kind of that old soul. He really
is, yeah.
And I know Vern, his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Wrestler.
Right. And there's a lot of that exposure kind of thing, what you're saying there, Trevor, that is so much like the rest of us. Same with Bill. Same with Josh.
Oh, yeah.
Same with Grobe. Really, it is. It's the same with Pat and Sloop, Steve. There's a lot of that carries over, maybe regardless of your actual generation.
So I guess we're figuring out here pretty quick that there's exceptions.
Sure.
And quite a few exceptions to those labels and brackets. Yeah.
Say more about that, brother.
Yeah, especially this kind of birds of a feather, group that we find ourselves in. We all have this common interest in fly fishing. I don't want to go down this romance rabbit hole, but there does seem to be a kind of a history and romance to it. And it seems like a lot of times the guys that get it kind of wind up, embracing that a little bit, and maybe want to dig a little bit deeper into stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into their generational bracket,
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's what I would argue that Austin has done. And again, I'm using him as an example because he's 30, but man, he does know those books we reference, those authors we reference, those influencers. You think if Joe Humphreys ever would have called himself an influencer
right.
back in the 80s?
But he was.
He certainly was. So, but Austin is the type that continues to go back. Hell, Austin's using a film camera. I'm like, come on, man. Like, what's the point of that? But that's the kind of person he is. He's like, he wants to, be self-sufficient, do it all himself and figure it out himself and understand where things came from. He does have an appreciation, like you're saying, Matt, like for the romance kind of, just the deep history of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask in the intro, like, can we go back? Can a person like Austin go back and fill in that stuff that, let's say, he missed because he wasn't alive during some of that stuff that was going on? Since 2010, Smith Creek has designed innovative guide tough gear for serious anglers. Introducing the new Fly View chest pack system, Smith Creek's most advanced accessory yet. Built from marine-grade aluminum and lightweight PE foam, the Fly View is rugged, modular, and made to keep up with you on the water. Fly View's lid features a built-in 3x Fresnel magnifier, giving you a clearer view when you're tying on fine tippet, especially if your eyesight isn't quite what it used to be. With 5 swappable tray styles and an external lid patch with a magnetic fly holder, the Fly View chest pack can comfortably hold well over 100 flies, all in easy reach. Spend less time tying and more time casting with Fly View. Visit them online at smithcreek.co for more information. Hey, this episode is supported by Troutbitten Fly Fishing. Troutbitten is one of the best fly shops in the United States. With over 30,000 fly fishing and fly tying products in stock, they have everything an angler needs, and they ship fast. Troutbitten also has a huge selection of Euro nymphing supplies, from rods and reels, leaders and sighters, beadhead nymphs, tactical hooks, and tungsten beads. And all orders over $49 ship for free. So for a limited time, Troutbitten is offering Troutbitten listeners 10% off their order. Just use the code Troutbitten in all caps at checkout. Visit TridentFlyFishing.com and fill up your cart. Can a person really go back and fill it in? What do you guys think?
I definitely think you can. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily common. And I think what makes it so difficult to see is that there's an easier pathway to knowledge. And I wouldn't say to experience, but to at least like head knowledge now, right? And I think that you see this across many, many different areas, not just fly fishing, but you have an easy pathway of entry to a level of knowledge that before would have taken you far, far longer to achieve.
Right.
Good point.
And yet you have a real dearth of actual experience. And so you come into you see, I'm sure that you, and I'm sure Matt, you, when you were guiding, saw this to some extent. You see people come in with a lot of knowledge and a lot of terms and a lot of words, but they have very little experience.
Right.
And that's a super unique, we're in a unique time in that respect.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if somebody like Austin is kind of like a Gen X, like a guy like me or Dom, but in reverse. He can jump back into that older stuff and incorporate some of those tactics into his more modern knowledge base. He probably learned a lot. I'm sure he sounds like a kind of guy that's learned a lot through trial and error, but he's also learned a lot probably through more modern tactics and content, things like that. And he can incorporate those older writings and older teachings, the Humphrey and the Harveys and people like that, where we're doing the opposite. We cut our teeth on that. We really didn't have a choice. I mean, we're talking pre-internet, pre-everything. We had books, we had illustrations. That's where we read and either absorbed it and learned it and tried to turn it into, a practical application, or we didn't. And then we, through our progression and our growth in the sport, we've now reached a point where we're adding the opposite. We're adding the more modern techniques and practices into that. So I think it's definitely true that Austin can incorporate that stuff. But I think he's just kind of doing it in exact reverse what we're doing. We started with that. That was our base. We're adding the more modern techniques where he's learned on the modern techniques and he's kind of incorporating that older stuff, kind of adding that to the arsenal.
Of course, Austin's 30, and then there's the 20-year-olds, and I don't know, even the 16-year-olds.
Right, who's the youngest? Is it
who
Josh?
Are getting into it? No, yeah, Josh and Austin are almost the same age.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that there are people outside of Troutbitten that are, listening to this right now who are 16 and 20 years old.
Right.
Some of my youngest son's baseball buddies listen to our podcast, and they're getting into trout fishing, and those kids don't know anything about.
Well, are they like we were? Are they
They don't know about split
hardcore
shot. You know what I'm
fishermen? Are
saying?
they?
It's
Yeah,
like-
I mean, by the time
Yeah.
I was 16, I dropped enough split shot that I probably should have filled out an environmental
Right.
impact statement.
Yeah. Nice.
So are
Nice.
they? I don't think you really evolve. I don't know if it's your brain's got to kind of reach a point where you kind of, I don't want to say graduate, but you kind of evolve from that just wanting to catch fish and that desire to fish. And
Yeah.
I think everybody that becomes a fisherman, I don't think I know a serious fly fisherman that wasn't just a plain fishing obsessed kid, that kind of thing.
Regardless of
Right.
there was bait on the line or fly.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And,
I'm with you on
and
that.
I don't know
yeah.
I don't know if it's a matter of, upbringing or, so a family member introducing you fly fishing or something. But there's always that some sort of moment, I think, that kind of changes a person's brain from just wanting to catch fish to now you want to catch fish on a hook with, some fur and feathers tied to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting you say how, let's say modern, for lack of a better term, modern anglers.
Yeah, I don't know how else to label them.
Yeah, I don't either. But it might go back and get some of this stuff. And we're kind of doing the reverse. We're like, I've always been very open to new. I'm just hungry, same as you guys. I'm just really hungry. Like, oh, that's a new idea. I hadn't heard of that. I hadn't thought of that. That's cool. So I stay in touch. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch as much YouTube as I can tolerate. Let's put it that way.
Right.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Is that mean?
for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got to throw away. You got to go. That
junk.
doesn't even make sense.
Doesn't belong.
The way that person is fishing isn't great. I'm not gonna put any value in what they're saying. That's all I mean by that. And I'd like to say I still read a lot of stuff, but there's not a lot of stuff, good stuff being written. Not like there was, like you were saying, Matt, in your thesis.
And I think we probably all agree that when you have original ideas, like real breakthroughs and original ideas, like those authors of the past had, they almost demand written word. They demand to be written down. And you don't see a whole lot of independent new thought, in print. You just don't. Everything's kind of this disposable content, and that's kind of what's cool about the whole Troutbitten thing. And that's where it started with. I started reading before I started watching Troutbitten, which is probably the opposite of what a lot of people do.
Well,
and I started incorporating some of the things that made sense, and I started incorporating different little tips and tricks and things that you guys developed over the years and Dom developed over the years, and adding them into what I've already been doing. And I definitely have preferences of how I like to fish, but I'm also not going to ignore a good idea or something that makes sense or something that is obviously better or potentially better, and that's what I did.
I do kind of lament the loss of people valuing that written word.
Yeah.
And I myself, I got to be honest about it. I mean, I'm not writing nearly as many articles. Well, I can't do everything, right? We're doing this podcast tonight, then I'm going to edit it later, tomorrow and the next day. That takes a lot of time, publishing, all this stuff. And the videos take a lot of time, way more than an article does. So the honest truth is I don't have as much time to write as I used to. That's kind of where the content is going, though. People seem to love the podcasts and the videos, and people. There's definitely a segment of people who still really like the articles, but not as big. It's not as big of a. But the truth is too, and Trevor, you know this. We've talked about it. I really love the video process right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a really fortunate position with this Troutbitten project to just be able to follow my heart, whatever I feel like doing at the moment. And I have plans, sort of loose plans. I went through a spell where I was doing like 500 word articles. That's not too much. That's like 4 or 5 paragraphs, right? Not technical either. Just short, just ideas, just things I was thinking, put them down. And in a way, I don't care who reads them. You guys know I don't follow the numbers too much.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up, though, like that 30-something group or even a 20-something group, like they can go back and read that stuff. I was thinking about this on the way home. I think of it like a baseball player. I stopped playing after Little League, Senior League, and then I was done. And I guess I've coached Little League and then travel ball teams for 11 years, I think it is. And the guys I coached with, played college baseball. Greg Brown played for the Mets for a little bit. These guys know baseball, is my point. They can just see it. They could probably close their eyes and understand more about the game than I can with my eyes wide open. They see it, they feel it, they have that depth of experience. They've been through so many baseball games and so many situations that if they were on the field and, they're down looking at the ball and there was a runner on first and third and they're about to pick that ball up and throw it, they know where the runners are. They know if they could throw to home or they should throw to second. There's something that they have that I don't. I never will because I don't have that experience. Now, what I've done, as soon as I started coaching, I know what the kids should know, but I don't have that experience. I do not feel it, see it like the other coaches do. When I keep the book, for example, I got to think. My buddy Jeff keeps the book and he's just like, he can do 7 things at one time. I mean, he can talk to the kids and be just like, just taking the book at the same time. When Jeff's not there, I'm like, oh no, I got to think about this. And so I can't hardly communicate with the kids in the dugout. I'm like, hey, just give me a second. What was that? How many strikes was that? Hey, who fielded that? How was that out completed? All the stuff. You guys get my point, right? Like, I can never fill that in. I've learned the rules, yes. And so, analogy is that the 30-something, the 20-something can go back and read all that stuff, watch the VHS tapes that I watched when I was in, early 90s, late 80s. But can they ever have that depth? You know what I mean? Maybe.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And in my mind, I'm trying to think to myself, what's a 20-something fly fisherman really like right now? It just seems to me and if I just base it on YouTube content and things like that, and I don't want to offend, I don't want to offend whatever generation.
No, that's
Generation
all right.
Z or whatever.
Sure.
It feels much shallower, for lack of a better word. It seems like everything you see seems like a lot of the same kind of just fishing-based content. They're all doing the same thing. It's Euro nymphing. It's maybe throwing some articulated streamers. They all seem to be doing kind of the same thing. And I wonder just what got them into fly fishing, and like did they have that desire to kind of learn beyond what I'm seeing on this YouTube content? I don't know.
So think about this. Doesn't it almost by definition have to be shallower? It can't be as deep because they're 20, not 50.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I guess that begs the question, can they, or do they even have the desire to? And it's kind of like what I was saying in my initial email to you. Do they even care who George Harvey is or Joe Humphrey, or, what their contributions to the sport were, what they could, what that information could provide them in their growth in fly fishing? And I just don't even think a lot of them probably even consider it. And it's kind of a shame that it's kind of going by the wayside.
Trevor?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. One is, do you think that the reason that Gen X is sort of in a golden era right now is just that it's come due, like you're at, it's that right. 50 to 60 year old age that you get to where you sort of have like the vitality to still be fishing hard, and yet you have the maximum amount of experience. And it's easy to criticize the 20-year-old for being young. But what
I'm
about,
trying not to sound like get off my lawn.
No, you're not. Right.
No, you're not at all. But I just wonder, like we don't yet know what the 20-year-olds will be like when they're 50.
Right.
And what will they have, because they had access to all that knowledge.
All that information.
Right. If they put the time on the water to beside that, which I think some of them will for sure. Just judging by, what we know about Josh and Austin. And I'm sure that they aren't the only two in the world, right?
No, I would think not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what will they be like at 50 and 60? I think, I don't know. That's where I think that there's a lot of nuance and situational factors that impact this.
That's what I was saying. Like, will it ever happen again?
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
And you're kind of, Trevor's kind of arguing that it not exactly
I think
the same
it won't
thing.
happen in the same way, but I think there will be another version of like this pinnacle of fishermen.
Yeah.
But it won't be one that looks at maybe at Harvey and Humphreys the same way, but maybe they
not
look
the
at
same way, but they'll still know it in a way.
they're looking at Swintoski and
No, they're not.
and
Mickey, yeah, right. Sure.
yeah, right. Yeah.
And
Yep.
one of the things I was thinking too is it gives Gen X I guess I could say an advantage over other generations when it comes to
Sure.
fly fishing is
Yeah.
just where we fall on that, I don't know, for lack of a better analogy or whatever, the evolutionary scale or where we fell with technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
something
remember
that's a
when I
big deal.
graduated high school, I didn't even have a computer class yet. But
I
by the
know.
time I
Mhm.
graduated college, I had a computer class, and then it was, the internet rolled around, 96, that kind of thing. So I fell right into that book learning,
Yes.
practical application of what I learned in the books to now, bang, I was right at the very beginning, basically, of the internet forums, things like that. And I think there's a lot of Gen Xers. I mean, when we started on those fly fishing forums, like the old Fly Fisherman forum,
Yeah.
the very first one in 97, whatever it was.
Yeah.
What were we, 25, 20, we're right in that age group that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And I just think where we fell in that technology world at the time, it opened up a whole nother realm of interaction and bouncing ideas and kind of speeding the learning curve and all that good stuff. I can remember days in those forums, and I think I've heard you guys talk about it with the Troutbitten forum, and I don't have any experience with the Troutbitten forum, but I can remember you'd interact on those forums and you'd answer a question or you'd participate in a thread on a forum, and you couldn't wait to get back in there to see what the response was.
I know.
Or to make another response. It's
For
just the
sure.
craziest thing. And like I said, we developed relationships, we developed friendships, all that good stuff. I developed actual flesh and blood friends from internet forums, and I'm sure the new generation is doing that. Probably more than we ever have, but we had that plus everything before that. It's just, I think technology probably benefited us more than anybody because we've seen every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point. And I do think that's a unique,
It is unique.
historical situation that won't repeat itself.
Right.
It doesn't
At
just
least in
affect
the
fly
same way.
fishing either.
Right. At least in the
Obviously.
same way. Right.
Yeah. Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. Tactical Fly Fisher was founded by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson to bring anglers cutting-edge gear and techniques inspired by the World Fly Fishing Championships. Tactical Fly Fisher's goal is to supply you with the latest and best fly fishing gear and to help you learn how to use it through their videos and books. Whether you need flies, fly tying supplies, a new rod or reel, or any other fly fishing equipment, they've got you covered. Check them out at tacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TB15 to get 15% off one order, excluding rods, reels, waders, and boots. Visit tacticalflyfisher.com.
One other thing that I think about a lot with this is I've always noticed, or I've always kind of been intrigued by the fact that a lot of the greats in the fishing world, and fly fishing world, and this is actually true for the hunting world as well, a lot of them come from the Northeast and a lot of them come from Pennsylvania. And I think it's kind of interesting, and I don't think it's an accident either. And I think there's some, I don't know if it's, I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it, because I've tossed around in my own mind, was it the hardworking, like steel and coal industries of the Northeast, or like this region of Pennsylvania and West Virginia, that cultivated these self-made kind of people? Or was it just that we have great fishing streams here. But if
Yeah.
so, like, why did you not see that in Montana? Why did you not see it in some of the other places where there are, and Michigan's probably a good example. There are certainly some fishing icons out of Michigan and the driftless area and all that kind of stuff. But it's hard to match what we have in central PA with the legacy of Harvey and Humphreys, and George Daniel and Dom. And, like you go to a fly fishing show and you look at the influential people there and who's written the books that are out currently. It's just amazing how
Even
many
the
of them are from
publishers.
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Even the publishers are mostly in
Yeah.
central PA.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And
I always
What is that?
I think it was just proximity to the resource. I really
water.
do. It was population and proximity to the resource, and those guys hitting it just right. And we kind of beat all those other places to the punch. It's not saying that your Montana authors wouldn't have come up with the same maybe ideas. I just think we just beat them to it, kind of thing. If you look, I mean, there's good Western authors, LaFontaines, and Lawsons, and things like that. But if you look, it's mostly more modern ideas, modern techniques, modern materials, things like that. But you're right. The historical thing, I just think we beat everybody to the punch with it, with the quality of people, the number of people, and the resource we had in Pennsylvania.
Well, it's East Coast stuff too. I mean, that's where you're, if you're closer to New York City, you're gonna know more people. You're gonna have more connections. I always go back to just right here. It's 365 days you can fish.
Sure.
And we know that Grobe, our buddy Matt Grobe out there, like he can get a few days in the winter, but there are a lot of winter days where it's 15 degrees below zero.
Yeah.
And come on, you really fly fishing in that? Come on.
Yeah. I quickly learned probably what killed my my whole guiding, quote unquote career was just the realization that if you aren't willing to travel, chase the seasons around, and move to Florida and become a saltwater guide in the winter, or South America and that kind of thing. And I was exploring those ideas. I really was.
Yeah.
I had some lines on some stuff in Russia and South America and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't set up shop somewhere where you can do it, year round, guiding really isn't a career choice. It's a trout bum kind of thing. That's why you see so many 20-year-olds, because they, just like me, I just went kicking and screaming into adult responsibility and didn't want to, you just want to get all that out of your system now, because at some point it's going to end. And that was kind of where I was.
But you got to be somewhere where it's fishing year round.
Some tailwater or something, yeah.
Anyway, it's a unique thing here. And it's just that consistent spring water that just keeps it going. And the fish keep eating. And that's also what makes them picky.
Keep rubbing it in.
That's right.
It's here.
My proximity is to that good fishing right now is kind of depressing right now. But no, I've fished all that same stuff that you guys are fishing, and I get there as much as I can. It's just not as much as I would like.
Yeah.
What did we figure out here that that my whole premise is a bunch of...
No, I think you have a great premise, honestly. I think that it's a great premise for so many reasons, and I think it's a great premise primarily because it brings up some really good topics of conversation that help us try to define what is it that makes a great angler, and were those factors primarily when you were born? Were they the factors that influenced you in terms of what your access to the internet was? Were they the home you grew up in and the type of work ethic you had and how much you wanted it? Right. I still think I don't remember what season it was. We kind of joked the greatest angler in the world is probably out there somewhere, completely content to be unknown.
Yeah.
Right. And
for sure.
And he's doing his own thing. And
right.
And that's where I think we have to admit, at least, that we have difficulty assessing the reality of our culture because of what social media shows us. And we get this exposure to the 20 and 30-year-olds that are on social media and those occasional others. But, how much are they a representation of what's really out there?
Right.
And are they just that sub-selected population that have a desire to be seen and known? There's not a lot of the type of content that that we put out. And I don't say that from like a self-righteous standpoint. I just mean that, you watch a lot of that stuff. And I think you said this earlier, Matt, and you're kind of just wondering, like, what is it that what are you trying to get out of this?
Right.
Is it just like, do you want people to be really impressed with you? Because I think that's maybe what it is.
Right.
It's not about fishing.
And it might actually even give, you would hope it would give, this discussion might provide Troutbitten and Dom and you guys with some ideas and some thoughts on how to tap into those, those
Yes.
younger guys and what drives them and what they might need to hear, want to hear, or what you want them to hear.
Yeah.
You kind of want to get a feel for what that younger generation is thinking, what they want. And, I'm sure, Dom, you're probably wondering is what I'm writing, what I'm providing, what I'm providing on content on YouTube, is it touching everybody? Am I talking just to Gen X? Am I talking to,
right.
the youngest generation? Is this carrying any weight from top to bottom?
Right.
And I would think a discussion like this would probably get the wheels turning a little bit on how to provide that,
Like I said, I'm 50 and Troutbitten's 10 years old. And I think about 10 years from now, I'll be 60. And then, I don't know. I mean, I don't make too many plans what I'll be doing with Troutbitten. But one of the things that I really like about Troutbitten, you could see a lot of data on YouTube, people's age, right? And it's a really good mix, I said, of young kids that are 14, 15, 16 years old. That 18 and below.
That is
right?
great. Yeah.
18 below is on YouTube. There's a good mix of them, and then all the way up through, let's say, senior citizens. Is it 75 and over? I think YouTube ranks them or groups them, and
that's cool.
Yeah, that's is cool. That makes me happy.
Yeah,
Advertisers
I just
like
need to
that
figure
too.
out how to get all those 14 and 16-year-olds fishing fur nymphs and split shot.
Yeah.
Well,
That's right.
briefly, let's talk about tactics then. Seriously,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have my preferences of what I like to, how I like to fish and what I like to fish. I'm not going to say I don't have, a box tucked away, and I'm a vest guy too, that I don't have a box tucked away in the vest with some bead heads, some tungsten in there and things. But I'm definitely, match the hatch, fur nymph kind of guy, split shot, different techniques with the split shot. I'm not just kind of a one trick pony with the whole thing, but
no,
but I definitely don't incorporate as much of the modern stuff as, not to say that I won't pull it out now and then, and I won't pull out a junk fly or I went kicking and screaming. I think I finally have a couple squirmy wormies, tucked away in the corner of a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, Matt shared with me his Betis pattern. Is that what you're calling it? I mean, that's pretty primarily what
There's
it
the
is,
Betis nymph. Yep.
I think they take it for, other things that size, but it's simple, but good, super good. And you even sent me some materials and whatnot. And as skeptical as I am about like the very specifics about patterns, when somebody has a pattern that I trust their opinion, they're like, hey, this works. I'm like, I want the exact materials then.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I don't want to make any substitutions. There's a reason that this person, Matt in this case, figured out this pattern, and he's like, well, this worked for me. I'm like, I'm not making any substitutions. Anyway, Matt sent me materials. I swear, and my clients could tell you, that little Betis nymph probably caught 50% of the trout in April and May.
Good to hear.
End of March, April and
Yeah,
May.
good to hear.
Kept it in that rotation, and I'd be fishing all kinds of stuff. I often fish, 2 nymphs, and I would keep that in rotation quite a bit, along with other stuff. It's not like I fished it so much, that's why I caught so many fish on it. Seriously. I think I'm pretty fair at testing things. Whether I had it paired up with a weighted fly, tungsten beaded fly, or I had it, with split shot and other unweighted flies, damn good fly. And it's simple,
I appreciate
man.
it. Yeah, and you can kind of see just by that pattern and our discussions that where I've formed my fishing opinions and what I've developed over the years. That you can definitely see the Humphrey and the that kind of thing, and the match the hatch.
Is that Dave
and the fur
Rothrock?
things. Dave Rothrock. Yeah, but I would say Dave Rothrock. Just a quick little thing with Dave. And he probably doesn't even know what kind of influence he had.
Oh, he's great though.
Just kind of stumbled into him in college. Me and my buddy Rusty in college, we were kind of the partners in crime fly fishing, and just sort of lucked into Dave, who kind of took us under his wing and invited us over, and we'd go over once or twice a week and sit down at his kitchen table. And 20, 21-year-old kids, you want to talk about speeding up the learning curve, be able to sit there with somebody like Dave Rothrock, who's willing to share his, not only his patterns, his techniques, the whole thing. It was a big help. Not only am I, kind of book learned, I kind of had a little bit of an advantage just by stumbling into somebody with that sort of a knowledge base. So when you learn from somebody like that, and you can put that, into practical application, and then you start really catching fish, you really start to hone that over the years. You kind of use that as your basis of operation, and then you work other things into there. But my main way of nymph fishing basically is formed from somebody like Dave Rothrock or Joe Humphrey. It's that typical Pennsylvania fur nymph, scuds and crest bugs and
split shot.
Hatch matching patterns and split shot. And there's a lot of nuances to the presentations and things like that, where you're positioning the split shot and how much, and a tag here, no tag there, a drop shot, all that kind of stuff. We could probably spend hours sitting here talking about the nuances of it. But like I said, I try not to be set in my ways with how I fish. Right. But if you were to talk to my buddies, they'll probably tell you, we've all been fishing pretty much the same way, for 30 years with little refinements here and there in a pattern and how we're doing, but it works, and that's what we're doing. But like I said, even with that sort of success and knowledge base and things like that, I was willing to throw in the little tips and tricks and things like that I learned through Troutbitten. Just little things that made sense. Whether it was a different rod, it was the mono rig, different things like that kind of enhanced what I was already doing, that made sense.
I wanted to say earlier, like, newer doesn't mean better. We all, I'm sure, agree with that.
No.
It might. It very well might. But newer does not mean better. Well, somebody like Dave Rothrock, I'm sure, I know this for a fact, like, he's very open to new ideas, and he does keep his ear to the ground about what else is going on. Sure. I just, day before yesterday, ran into Dominic Dusso, who was my 5th grade teacher, and then he sold me my first fly rod. I mean, he gave me everything I'd need for a limited amount of money when I was like 16 years old. And now he lives up here. He retired up to this area. And I see his truck every day. He's out fishing on one of our streams. I see it all the time. Ran into him. And it was really cool just catching up with him. And he is, well, again, he was my teacher in 5th grade. So what's that make him? Probably 20 years older than me, right? Maybe more than that. And he knows, let's say, modern ideas. In the intro here, I read something that you wrote there, Matt, and you said, like, does a 75-year-old guy care about 4mm tungsten orange beads?
Right.
And I'm sure that Dom Dusso
I barely do.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But I don't know if he carries them in his box. I'm not saying that one way or the other. But he's aware, of what's available. Yeah. And I bet you he tries it. I'm just guessing. But a guy like him, I would say, is going to try it, going to put his own, maybe even his own spin on the whole thing, and then maybe assimilate it into his, bag of tricks.
Yeah.
That's what you fish very similarly to
yeah, and you know what, with the way I fish, a lot of times I feel like it gives me an advantage over a lot of the.
Go ahead.
An advantage to the point where I'm not doing the same thing as everybody else.
The trout are seeing
maybe not
different.
Catching more fish, but I'm catching different fish. I'm doing something different from a lot of people that is working. So, I'm presenting something different. I'm doing something different. I'm not throwing the same Perdigons and Rainbow Warriors and squirmy wormies and all that kind of stuff. I think it gives me an advantage a lot of times.
Different because it's older.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really do.
That's interesting.
So I want to tell you about Tajima Direct. They make the best polarized lenses on the market. Tajima gives me perfectly clear vision and more detail with less eye strain, so I see more fish. The process is simple. Take a pair of your sunglasses and send them in to Tajima. In short order, you'll get your frames back with your choice of lens tints that are specifically designed for fly fishing. With both prescription and non-prescription, Tajima's patented lens technology results in the best lenses I've ever worn, including every top brand out there. So I wear polarized lenses all day, every day, on the water. And I've been rotating in Tajima's brown 15 green mirror for average light days, and their yellow-green 40 silver mirror for the cloudy low-light days that I love to fish. I can tell you that for me, having Tajima's prescription lenses in the right lens tints has been a game changer. I put my glasses on, and I don't think about them again until the end of the trip. Send in your own frames today. Visit tajima-direct.com. That's TAJIMA-direct.com. Upgrade your lenses and see what you've been missing. Since 2006, Yeti has been building products for anglers who fish hard and share an addiction for the woods and the water. Yeti changed the industry with their legendary coolers by featuring rugged but simple designs built to last for generations and stand up to whatever Mother Nature might bring. Yeti now takes that same functional and elegant design to everything in their lineup, from soft coolers to drinkware bags and more. Introducing the Easy Access Ranchero Backpack. It's the latest to join Yeti's lineup of tough-as-nails bags, and it's another part of my fishing gear that keeps me organized and ready on the water. The Ranchero Backpack features a cutting-edge rip-zip opening, so you can quickly tear the bag open to see the gear you need in just seconds. With smart internal organization, there's no more digging through your backpack for tippet spools or fly boxes. And for even more convenience, a handy vertical zipper allows you to grab gear at the bottom without having to unpack from the top. Get in, get out, and get going. Check out the Ranchero line of backpacks at yeti.com or find them at a Yeti retailer store near you.
It's a cool conversation. I like this whole topic. I think my encouragement to all the young anglers out there would be to get your nose in books and learn where this came from, right? Yeah, you don't know what you're missing. You can't replace some of that stuff. I've always felt like Troutbitten's, the reason that it stands up is that it has this wealth of actual information that's written. And everything has been built off that, even the podcasts and what we do with videos, they're all based off written ideas, and they're written because they've been thought out. And,
Right.
They aren't knee-jerk reactions. They aren't just like disposable content. It's information you can chew on. And I think there, like you said earlier, Matt, I don't think there's a lot of that coming out anymore. And so it makes what is out there valuable.
Sometimes all it takes is an image, a picture, an illustration. Sometimes I was telling Dom when we had our little get together the other night, we were just kind of talking off the cuff. And of course I was shuffling around and grabbing stuff, and I wanted to show him a book that literally when I was 9-10 years old that I got at a flea market. And it just happened to be Charlie Fox's This Wonderful World of Trout. I was a fishing obsessed kid who just, all I want to do was catch bluegill, the typical, kid kind of stuff. And I came across this book, and it had trout on it. It was a quarter at a flea market. So I asked my mom if I could have this book, and I ended up with this book that turns out to be a Pennsylvania classic. And if you guys don't own it, you really should get a copy. It's a terrific book. But in paging through the book, there's a single picture in that book of our friend Ed Koch holding up a 9 or a 10 pound brown trout that he caught on a floating cricket in the Latort, and he's holding a fly rod in the picture. So you have Ed Koch with this giant trout and a fly rod, and I don't know a fly rod from a Pop-Tart, at that time, I'm just a little, a kid. But all I knew at that point, my brain basically melted when I saw that picture. And I just knew from that point that I needed a fly rod. If I want to catch a 9 pound trout, that's how I got to do it. And that was the whole basic origin story of where I got interested in fly fishing. I ended up begging my parents, and like I said earlier in the podcast, that nobody in my family hunts or fishes, so they didn't get any of this. They didn't really understand it. And I was the kid with a subscription to Sports Afield at 8 years old.
Nice.
just rifling through the fishing articles, absorbing as much as I could like a sponge. But I begged for that fly rod. It was maybe 9th or 10th Christmas, and bless my parents, they got me this Martin fiberglass fly rod, and I'm out there and, probably a foot of snow, Christmas Day, standing in the driveway, teaching myself how to cast this fly rod at, 9-10 years old, because I don't have anybody to teach me how to do it. So literally, everything that I've learned and everything that I've done in fly fishing has been self-taught. And not to say that it hasn't been guided, and I haven't ridden the coattails of a whole lot of great people, but I had to turn that written word and all that stuff into, a practical application where I could turn it into, a lifetime of fly fishing and actually go and catch some fish.
Yeah. Totally. That's cool, Matt.
That's good stuff. Hey, Matt, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. It meant a lot. I appreciate it.
All right. There it is. Gen X as the most fortunate fly fishing generation. I think the key here is really the rapid advancement of technology and the easy spread and sharing of information, enabled really by the internet. So my generation, Matt's generation, learned from textbooks just as much as fishing blogs, from Sunday fishing shows in the 80s to the latest YouTube video posted last week, from packed house presentations at Trout Unlimited meetings to the modern podcast format. And here's the thing, we're comfortable with all of it. So no one knows what's coming next, of course, but I'll bet there's another media form just around the corner, and this generation, every generation, will surely learn from it. Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Next week, we'll finish up Season 15 with the annual airing of grievances. So send in your guest grievances if you have them, because we'll share a few of those on the podcast. Fish hard, friends. Hey, Dr. Trevor Smith, will you read us out?
All right. Remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. Troutbitten website hosts over 1,500 articles, videos, and podcasts with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags, too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, now featuring the Troutbitten Tips series, Fly Fishing the Monorig, and the Troutbitten Fly Box, all in collaborations with Wilds Media. You'll also find the fish and film videos in the new Riverside series, all in their own playlists on Troutbitten YouTube. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a comment, because it really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
You can't say that. Hey now.